I want to thank the Texas Commission on the Arts for their support of Seneca Studios, Arts Fort Worth, the Annealer and Carroll Green Roads Charitable Trust, and all those out there who have donated to help make our programming possible. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. We, as you know, feature an artist the second Friday of every month. We're about to start live demonstrations in person. We have our glass market and pumpkin patch, so if you're watching and you looking for something to do tonight, come visit us. Come see what we got going on tonight. We're thrilled to have G. Brian here as our featured artist, and he's brought some wonderful things to show us and some wonderful talent to show off in this demonstration. So G. Brian, welcome to Seneca Studios.
Hey,
thanks so much for
being here. Thanks so much. It's really good to be here, and thanks for everybody who has supported Seneca and made this artist program possible, because I'm going to really have a lot of fun tonight thanks to you. So thanks so much. We really do appreciate it. And I'm here today with Heather. She's going to be helping out. This is Heather Spiewak. We come all the way from Corning, New York to Texas last year. And yeah, we're just kind of stepping into the community here and have really enjoyed it so far. So a big
great to
thank
have
you for the
more
welcome.
Talented glassmakers move into this area. It's really a pleasure to bring people together. That's what Seneca is always about, right? We're about bringing people together to have experiences, to learn more about glassmaking, and bringing artists in who you know, are willing to share their knowledge and their talents. So tell us a little bit about you. Where are you from? I understand you're born in Detroit.
Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and graduated high school there. After high school, I went to a little college called Alfred University. It's in Alfred, New York, upstate New York. And from there, I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts and a K through 12 teaching certification.
Really?
So I have a New York State teaching certification. Kind of fun. And I got to put really both of those to use for 20 years at the Corning Museum of Glass. So I worked in Corning for 20 years, and I did a lot of demonstrations and traveling all over the world. We were glass evangelists. We brought glass to the world for folks who couldn't come to us to see glass. We brought glass to them, educating them, answering questions, and it was really a nice way to use both my passion for teaching and my passion for glass and art, and my passion for people. I love just working with people and chatting with people. And
Right on. Well, you're perfect to be here tonight, because that's what this place is all about. Thanks so much. So what'd you bring? You brought some things to show us.
So we brought a few pieces. Yep. I've been working, when I left Corning, I was working on a series of kind of flower vases, and we've continued that here in Texas. And so we've got a lot of beautiful colors, a lot of patterns. We've got one hidden back here. And so these have been fun to make here in Texas. And then a classic piece of mine is a Jack in the Pulpit. So we brought one of these.
That's nice.
They're all for sale. Come on out. And then the piece that we're going to make tonight, this was my practice warm-up piece, so it's not very good. Don't look too close. But it's a cane vessel with a herringbone cane pattern. There's only 3 colors. It's got a thick, solid foot, polished bottom.
Nice cold working.
Thanks. I wouldn't have cold worked it, but the bottom didn't sit flat, so I had to. So truth be told, that's what happened. And then, so we're going to make something like this tonight. We've got some brighter colors and a new color pattern. It's all color on the exterior. So a lot of times with cane, there's clear windows. Tonight's piece, there won't be any clear windows. It'll be bright yellow, kind of a yellowish orange, really, a bright purple, and then a bright red as well. And so when they're all on the color wheel together, we know that 3 colors next to each other are, say it out loud if you're at home, analogous colors. That's right. That's right. So 3 colors next to each other on the color wheel are going to look bright and beautiful together. And we're going to have a lot of fun working with Kevin, Clifton. I don't know. Gene, are you going to be in the shop with us?
No, I'm going to be behind the...
You'll be behind the one behind the camera.
Gene's producing the whole spiel.
Great. And yeah, so this is kind of what we'll be making tonight, or what we'll be going for.
Plan A.
Plan A. This is Plan A, and we'll see what Plan B happens. Yeah. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being here. I want to thank Jean, as you just heard, is behind the camera, and she'll be producing online. I want to thank the rest of the team. We've got, you know, it takes a village to bring glass art to the world, and so I want to thank Heidi, and Imran is here, Kevin, as you heard. Lucas is here on the camera documenting for, you know, Seneca Studios is a nonprofit. We're about arts and culture, education, and community. And we get grants, we get support from all over the place. And this program was funded by the Texas Commission on the Arts. And we got a report, right? We got a report. So if you're coming out, come out and tell us where you come from so that we can report accurately. If you're watching online, plug into the chat. We'll be manning the chat. Gene will be answering questions. Tell us where you're watching from. That helps us to report some of that information to those who support us. And if you're in the area, please come by. We'll have our glass market and pumpkin patch going all day tomorrow as well. We'll probably pepper in some demonstrations also.
But tonight's the night.
But
Tonight's
tonight's
the
definitely
night.
the night.
You wanna
Tonight's
catch
definitely
me,
the
Brian?
night. This is a great neighborhood. There's a lot going on, so come down and check us out. And again, as a school, we offer all kinds of programming in the community, all kinds of public programming in glass blowing, flame worked glass, and kiln formed glass. So there's something here for everybody. You guys check us out online and sign up for a workshop. Come check
Try
us
it out yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
All right. Well, we're gonna get into the hot
All right.
shop and get to work and make some stuff.
Cool.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
All right. I got the camera now. Everybody watch out. So I'll give you guys a quick little tour because here we go. We had a really big crowd earlier today, and now we've got a whole bunch of glass set up in the parking lot. There's a big musical event happening up the street right now that just pulled all of our audience, but there's going to be a crowd later, I'm sure. There's Kevin. Kevin's on the pastorelli. He's heating up pastorelli to get ready to pick up the cane. So I'm sure as we go through the demonstration, Gene will inform you guys all on the techniques that we'll be utilizing in this piece tonight. There's our furnace running at 2100 degrees Fahrenheit with all of our beautiful clear glass in there. This process is team oriented, to say the least. It takes more than one person to do complex work, and so Kevin and Brian will be working closely together, and they will be constantly communicating, and Heather's going to be backing everything up. So I'll do my best to catch the action on the live stream here on camera, and as we get an in-person audience, I will be narrating for them as well. Okay, so they're getting ready to pick up the pattern. So Kevin's going to go over to the annealing oven and pick up that herringbone pattern that G. Brian described. This oven's sitting at 915 degrees, and those canes were warmed up. When you heat anything up in this world, it gets bigger. When you cool it off, it gets smaller. Measurable. It's called the coefficient of thermal expansion. And so if we go right into that reheating oven with cold glass, oftentimes it will stress out and crack. So they preheated those canes so that they would already have some of that stress alleviated. So this process will take a minute, right? We got to get those canes hot, and as Kevin's doing that, G. Brian's going to gather some clear glass out of the furnace and prepare a collar that he can roll those on. So it sounds like I'm going to get involved here and help flip this plate around from time to time and possibly torch some things. So I'm going to sit this down where we can see. And I'm going to hand the mic off to Gene.
Hammer first.
All right, you guys. Well, welcome to our open studio night. We are featuring G. Brian, as we talked about earlier. So if you're just tuning in, G. Brian is rolling up this really cool cane pattern on a bubble. This pattern is made using a bunch of different pieces of glass called cane. So the color is stretched into long, thin rods and then cut up into smaller bits and then put on a plate to heat up. So you can see here, Kevin is turning the plate on a pastorelli. And And then he's gonna take a flash. So he's gonna grab that pastorelli and put it into our reheating chamber to heat up the glass and melt it all down. So this takes quite a bit of careful heating to make sure that those little pieces of cane don't overheat too much. Otherwise they'll stick to that plate. But it's super important to get the cane nice and warm and toasty and all stuck together. So the plan is to roll them all up. So after a quick reheat, you can see that G. Brian is going over. He's torching the surface a little bit, just to encourage all the glass to heat up and stick together. All right, you guys, if you're tuned in, go ahead and hold on for just a second and we'll be back here shortly. All right, so you guys can see that super cool herringbone pattern that G. Brian is rolling up. It's got a bunch of different colored cane. I think he's got some purple, some orange, and I want to say some red in there. And all of the cane has this really cool swirly white pattern kind of going on inside. So a lot of teamwork going on here. You can see there's Kevin, who is heating up the cane. Heather's kind of standing at the ready. G. Brian is paying attention to the cane, making sure that he's torching it when it comes out, and squeezing all the little cane pieces together so they all kind of stick together. Heather's taking care of the doors there to make sure as Kevin comes out of the reheating chamber that the doors keep a little bit of extra heat in that reheating chamber. Now, cane is a pretty complex process. We kind of take colored glass, pull it into long, long strips of glass. Once that cools down, you can cut it into shorter lengths. Then you can use it for rolling up stripes of color onto a vessel. If you've been tuned in since the beginning of our stream, you probably saw that vessel that we pointed out in the gallery, where G. Brian has a bunch of lines of color on his vessel. So cane is a super cool way to create pattern, any linear pattern. So G. Brian has got to kind of squeeze all those little pieces of cane together, make sure they're stuck together. You can see him heating it up with a torch to melt the surface of the glass down a little bit further. You can see that as the glass is heating up, it's also gaining a little bit of that orange glow. So we can tell a little bit of what the temperature is like. Just by watching that orange glow develop. So Heather's helping us out here with the fluffy torch, helping us torch those cane pieces together. You can see that glass kind of glowing a little more orange. And now while Kevin is heating up the cane, continuing to warm up the cane, G. Brian is going to make what we call a collar. So he's gathered up some glass on the end of a blowpipe. And you can see that when the glass is really, really hot, it has a very bright yellow glow. As the glass cools down, you're going to notice that the color will shift. It'll first go to something like an orange, and then eventually a dark red before it goes to clear. Now we got to make sure that it doesn't go all the way to clear. G. Brian's gotta have a little bit of heat. He's planning on rolling that cane pattern onto this collar. So he's shaping it up. And then checking the size. So the little pie calipers that he is using are basically helping him measure size. And he has to make sure that that color corresponds to the size of the cane roll-up that he is doing. So Heather's torching the surface of the cane, heating it up a little bit more. We gotta make sure that the cane is nice and flexible Not too hot, but definitely not cold. If the glass is cold and we try to bend it, the glass is going to want to crack on us, and we definitely don't want that. So G. Brian is checking the size, making sure everything is correct. And Kevin's going to take another flash, get all the cane nice and toasty, warm and gooey. And then making sure that the cane pattern is all stuck together is super important for this next step. We're going to try to roll it up kind of like a sheet of glass. So that means that all the little pieces of cane need to kind of be stuck together, so they should have been heated enough by this point to be stuck together. And that way G. Brian can take his collar and slowly roll that cane pattern up. Just like a sheet of glass. So cool. It's kind of cool when it all works so well like that. His next step is going to be to dust off and squeeze all of the glass together. And then just kind of dust off any maybe debris that might have been picked up onto the glass surface. So G. Brian is using a set of tweezers, a really great tool. Looks just like a set of regular cosmetic tweezers, but a lot larger. And he's kind of squeezing his pattern together to make sure they're all stuck together. It doesn't have too many holes. And then he's going to take the glass over to the marver and roll the glass across the surface. The marver is going to help kind of squeeze all of those little pieces together. Now, heating is important. You can see that as G. Brian is heating, his glass color is changing. It's getting a little more orangey red in color. And the next few steps involve torching the glass, heating it, squeezing the pattern together, and making sure all of the glass is stuck really, really well together before we can do anything further with it. So G. Brian has got to do this several times. He's got to heat the pattern, squeeze the pattern together, heat it, squeeze it, quite a few times before we can really do much more with it. Now, because this is a vessel shape, I'm assuming that he's going to want to blow this vessel. He's got this on a blowpipe. And so making sure there are no gaps in his pattern is going to be pretty important. So this process of heating and marvering and heating and marvering is really squeezing all those holes in the pattern out. We're getting rid of the holes in his pattern, any little spaces. So if you guys are out and about today, come check us out. We're going to be demoing until about 9 p.m. So G. Brian is going to be working in the glass studio until 9 p.m. So if you live close to Fort Worth, Magnolia Street, come hang out. We've also got a bunch of things out in our market. And if you're looking for some glass pumpkins, today is the day. The best view that you're gonna get is gonna be in person we've got the bleachers set out. It's a beautiful day outside. So come hang out with us on site. This is something we do only once a month. So our free demo nights where we bring in an awesome artist to come hang out and demo in our studio is something that doesn't happen too often. We only get them to come out once a month. So G. Brian has just moved to the area not very long ago. He was at Corning, at the Corning Museum of Glass, working at their studio, and is now working at Carlin Ray Designs for Carlin Ray out in Dallas, Texas. So we're super lucky to have him and Heather out in this area. Really, really fortunate to be growing our glass community in Fort Worth and Dallas. I'm not sure if you guys caught Heather's demo a few months ago, but Heather's demo is also very fantastic. If you missed it, feel free to check out our archives. We keep all of these live videos recorded on our Facebook and YouTube channels, so feel free to go check those out. Check out Heather, I believe she was in April or sometime earlier this year. So you can see that those patterns have been squeezed together. G. Brian was heating and rolling and heating and rolling to get the pattern to squeeze and fit together very, very well. For those of you who are watching, if you have any questions about anything we're doing tonight, feel free to jump on our chat. We are monitoring our chat, so jump on and let us know. So G. Brian, it still has an open vessel shape on the end of his blowpipe. He's teasing by blowing into the end of the blowpipe, but the form is still not closed off. So we've got a little bit of work to do before we can get to the point of being able to blow this form. And so patience is key here with these movements. Getting the glass to a nice gooey consistency and then marvering it so it squeezes all the glass together. Nice job, G. Now, one of the things is that glassmakers make all of these things look so very easy to do. I can almost certainly tell you that the process you're watching right now is not very easy at all. It takes quite a lot of skill and talent and experience to make it happen. So G. Brian's got a variety of demos planned for this evening. The first one being this cane pattern, this cane vessel pattern. We are gonna see him demo a couple other things tonight, so if you're sticking around or coming in to hang out with us in person, feel free to grab a friend, bring them by. You may not get to see this vessel, but you'll probably get to see a couple other things that he's doing tonight. Again, if you're in the area, we are demonstrating until 9 p.m. So one of the cool things about glass is that it goes through a melting process where it goes from solid to kind of gooey to a liquid. Not many materials do that. It has a transition, and that's kind of what allows us to work with the glass while it's in this state where it's in this gooey, kind of taffy-like state. A lot of other materials like metal hit their melting point and then instantly go to a liquid. And you can't work with metal in this way. So the nice thing about glass is you can work with it while it's still in this taffy stage. So understanding heat and being able to control heat, understand gravity, really, really helps with this process. So for those of you who are not familiar with us, Seneca Studios is a nonprofit organization. We're here to educate you guys about glass. So if you're in our area, if you're local to DFW, come by and hang out with us. We do this demonstration night on the second Friday of every month. You can see G. Brian here talking to a couple people hanging out. So if you want to come by, see what he's up to, talk to him about glass, this is a great opportunity to do that. A lot of people don't tend to have access to glass studios and don't get a chance to ever ask a glassblower a question. So this is a really awesome opportunity to learn about the material, engage with us, come meet your local friendly neighborhood glassblowers. We teach classes here, so if you're interested in learning how to do this yourself, you can certainly go to our website and learn about glassmaking through our website, but the best way to do that is actually to take a class with us. So we offer classes in glassblowing, we offer classes in flame working, and in the kiln forming studio, as well as the cold shop, which doesn't get talked about too much. So if you're interested in learning how to do things like blow glass, which is what G. Brian is doing here with us tonight, you can come take a glassblowing class with us in our hot shop. If you're interested in flame working and learning how to work on a torch, come take a class with us in the flame working studio. And if you're heat averse, if you're thinking, yeah, heat's not really for me, we do offer classes in kiln forming, which is very similar to stained glass or mosaics. And then the cold shop. We have classes in the cold shop, so if you're interested in things like repurposing glass bottles or recycling glass that you have, and you want to learn how to maybe cut open a bottle and repurpose it as a light shade or a vase or a planter or something like that, we have classes in that as well. One of the very cool things about glassmaking is you can learn about glass forever. It is a super fascinating material, and it really, those of you who are the type of people to start something, try it out, and then get bored, well, you're never gonna get bored with glassmaking. It's just one of those materials that you can learn about forever. So Heather's making what we call a cookie foot, which is just a patty of glass stuck onto the marber. And G. Brian's gonna use that patty to close off his vessel. So as you guys can see, glass is super gooey when it's really hot. It's kind of like got a honey-like consistency. As you work with it, it gets cooler and stiffer, starting to lean more toward a taffy-like stage. And then as it cools down, it gets very hard and brittle. So the key with a glass maker is keeping it in a working range where it's not too hot, where you're losing control over the glass, and it's not too cold where it's cracking on you. So it takes a lot of experience to get to this point, but everyone's got to start somewhere, right? So if you're thinking about starting a new hobby or you're interested in learning about glassmaking, go take a class. Even if you're not local to us, there's probably a really awesome glass studio near you where you can go take a class and learn about this material. So you'll watch G. Brian do this very often tonight. He's gonna shape the glass using a tool, This steel table right here is called a marver. So he's going to shape the glass, and then after doing a couple of shaping moves, maybe a little bit of blowing, his next step is going to be to reheat the glass. So very, very similar to what a ceramicist might do, where the ceramicist might wet their clay over and over using a little bit of water to keep the clay soft and pliable. A glassmaker uses heat in the same way. So G. Brian and Heather are kind of talking out a plan. A lot of what we do in the glassmaking studio is very collaborative, and generally you're working with a team. So some teams do work very well together, and they work a lot together to the point where they don't have to communicate too much. But communication is super important in the studio. By the way, don't forget to share this video with your friends. One of the best and easiest ways to help us out is just to let people know about us. We are a nonprofit, so we do run these programs on grants and donations from people just like you. But super easy, no cost way to help us out is just to tell people about us. So if you've come and taken a class with us, tell your friends about us. If you haven't come and taken a class with us, come take a class or just hang out for one of these free open studio nights. Come in person, talk to us. We love seeing new faces around here. So come hang out with us. Today's actually a great day to do that because we've got an awesome market that covers our entire parking lot. And so if you're thinking about buying a pumpkin, a glass pumpkin for the year, this is a great opportunity to do that. Our studio is a small studio located in an old gas station. And so we've redone the studio. You can see some of the doors. This place was basically an auto shop, so the bays are original to the building. Makes for a pretty cool glass blowing studio though. So at this point, G. Brian has closed off that bubble. He has taken that little cookie foot that Heather cut off for him, and he's attached it to the end of that cylinder shape. And now his process is going to be to blow it just like kind of a regular bubble. For those of you who've seen glass blowing before, this is going to be pretty familiar. We've got basically a balloon shape on the end of that blowpipe there. And so G. Brian's got to be careful with his heat. He's got to keep and maintain a nice heat temperature. And as he does that, he can start to inflate the glass. The glassmaker uses a variety of tools. So G. Brian was using a little bit of newspaper there. You can see Heather and Kevin shielding him with wooden paddles. We're going to see him use a variety of tools as he shapes this. By the way, if you guys have any questions about the process you see, or you want us to pass on some of the love to Heather and G, let us know. And don't forget to share this video. Share it with your friends, tell your friends about us, or just bring your friends on down. We've got some glass out for today. And so it's a nice opportunity to come and check out all the cool things you can make with glass too. Nice opportunity to hang out because the weather is really, really nice out. So G. Brian is using the jacks to cinch off and constrict an area on that bubble. He's used that cookie foot to bring all of his cane pattern down to a point. So he's gonna be cutting off most of that clear glass. It was almost used like a tool, basically, to pull all his cane down to a point. So G. Brian's using that marver table again to shape that bubble. Now we've got a closed bubble where the pattern goes the entirety of the length of that bubble. From here, he doesn't have to worry about the clear being a part of the vessel as he's working with it, because he's gone ahead and cut most of that off. Or actually, he's gone ahead and cut all of it off. Now the marver is a pretty cool thing because it allows you to cool the glass down while shaping it into whatever form you need. And that helps when you're blowing something out. If you're trying to control heat and you're trying to shape things up. It's a great tool in the studio. Now, I'm not quite certain. I know that G. Brian is planning on making a vase shape. But I'm not quite certain how big he's going with this, so. Catherine, yes, I believe that is the infamous eagle picture on the marver. I don't know the story behind that one, but I'll get G. Brian to tell the audience about that one later. And then Ashley, I believe the first piece that he's making is a cane vessel. So the vessel is made with a bunch of thin pieces of cane. So G. Brian started off by pulling lots and lots of pieces of cane, which are long, stretched out strips of color. He's got this really cool white pattern on the inside of the cane, so it's got sort of a marbling effect. And then those pieces of cane were chopped up into smaller sections and then rolled up in a herringbone pattern. Yes, 100%. It's super meticulous. one of the things that people don't realize too often is how much work and prep work goes into making glass. So this piece actually started a few days ago because G. Brian took his color and pulled it into long pieces of cane a few days ago. A lot of glass work starts off it starts off a few days before you actually finish the piece, or it can take several days to complete a piece of work. G. Brian is using a wooden block to shape the glass into something kind of like a Q-tip shape. These blocks are generally made out of fruit wood, which is a pretty nice, hard, dense wood. And we keep them sitting in water to protect the wood surface as much as we possibly can. So because the wood is wet, when it comes into contact with the glass, it forms a thin layer of steam. So the glass is actually not really riding on the wood itself, it is riding on that thin layer of steam. So don't forget, you guys, this is a demo you can come watch in person. In fact, we'd love to say hello to you if you want to come hang out with us tonight. We've got our market going on outside, and so there's lots of glass to see. The entire parking lot is filled with glass, which is something we don't do often. It's happened twice this year and might happen just once next year. And then this is probably your only opportunity in a very, very long while to watch G. Brian work in our studio. We like to bring out artists once a month to demonstrate in our studio what they do, all of their pattern and what they work on. So I think G. Brian is planning on chilling this glass out. Looks like he's cooling down his pipe because they're getting ready to gather some glass on top. So the unit you see G. Brian gathering out of here is called our furnace. It is the heart of every glassblowing studio. And we keep liquid glass in there at about 2100 degrees, pretty much all the time. You can see at this temperature the glass is super liquidy, just like honey. And when it's at this temperature, it's very, very important to keep the glass turning. So at this stage, it's super susceptible to gravity. You can see G. Brian is turning and then using a block and then a wet piece of newspaper to shape the glass. Now the wet newspaper is a super cool tool because you can put your hands really, really, really close to the glass. As you've probably already noticed, glass is way too hot to touch, and so the glassmaker is forced to use tools to shape the glass. But wet newspaper is pretty cool because you can put your hand really, 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 really close to the glass without it burning. As long as the newspaper is wet and thick enough, you shouldn't feel any heat through that newspaper. So you can see at this point that the glass is glowing red. It's like a bright orangey red. I don't know if you guys can see that pattern on the inside, but that's part of the herringbone pattern that G. Bryan had is visible on the inside. So he's planning on gathering again. We gotta let the glass chill out just a little bit so that the color doesn't get too hot. Now inside this furnace we keep our clear glass. So most of the color pattern is done using color that we buy. You can see the glass is super duper gooey at this temperature. And then the clear glass is used to thicken up the form that we're working with. So all of the color patterning was done right at the beginning. If you've been hanging out for our live stream, you'll see the color kind of develop as he works. But we used a little bit of, actually we used a little bit of purple, I believe some orange and some red. Now all of those colors have a little bit of white under them, so there's gonna be some variation that we're gonna see from like so say in the purple there's gonna be a little bit of dark purple and light purple transitioning between itself, almost like a marbling effect. You can see G. Bryan is using that wet newspaper again to shape the glass. He's pushed a lot of that clear all the way to the end. And that's gonna end up being his base, the part where his base kind of sits. So if you watch this live stream from the very beginning, you probably saw the vase that's in the gallery. If you didn't, and you come by tonight, you'll probably get a chance to see it. He's making something super duper similar to that base. So it's got a very thick, clear base, and then a colored patterned body. So Heather's taking a little bit of heats for G. Bryan. Like I mentioned earlier, this is really a team sport. And so the team's kind of communicating between them. You'll notice that several people are working together. And then they tend to rotate positions too. Heather was on doors earlier, and Kevin was actually helping to heat the piece. And now they've both kind of switched. Yeah, we're super excited too, Ashley. If you get a chance to come by and check out the piece that's in the gallery, the colors are different, but the pattern is very, very similar. So G. Brian is using the wet newspaper to stretch out and shape the glass. He's really focused on that end where he's trying to gather a little bit of extra clear for the base. And now he's using the jacks to start creating a constriction. So most vases that have a thinner neck start out like this. They get a little bit of a constriction, and then that constriction gets drawn out into a long neck shape. So for those of you who haven't seen a lot of glass making, it is kind of an interesting way to think about it. We're working right now with a bubble, and the end of the bubble is going to end up being the bottom of the vase. So the part that is furthest from Heather at this point will actually be the part that sits on the table. You can see that the glass is moving quite a bit at this stage. G. Brian's doing a great job stretching the glass out as he's working. As well as having Heather blow into it using compressed air. So the constriction that G. Brian is working on right now is called the jackline or the neckline. That's going to end up being the top of the vase. So he's got the bottom shaped out really, really nicely. The next step is to continue working on the neck of the vase, which is going to end up being the top of the vase. You can see that he's constantly turning his hands. If you've been paying attention, you probably noticed this very early on. Because glass is almost a molten liquid. It's like a constantly moving taffy. He's got to continuously turn his hands in order to make sure that the glass doesn't succumb to the forces of gravity. So in order to keep this vessel nice and symmetrical, G. Brian is turning, making sure he's constantly turning as he's tooling the piece. And then he's shaping it as he turns. So with every move, you're hopefully able to see that that piece is constantly changing. Now we can see some of that pattern developing, but the other part of the pattern is very subtle because it is in the red and orange family. So the reason why you can't really see it very easily on camera has to do with the glow of the glass. So that glass is still pretty warm. We're working with the glass while it is still in a pretty hot state, and so it's giving off a little bit of an orange glow. So at this point, what you're probably able to see is the purple pattern. That would be my guess. Because that purple pattern has a little bit of white underneath, and it's showing really, really bright on camera. But the red and the orange tones are blending in a little bit with the heat that's coming off of the glass. And so we're not going to see that color fully develop until the piece is almost done or it's fully cooled down. Really great shape here. Look at the beautiful optics on that bottom, the foot of the vessel. One of the best qualities of glass is its optics. Definitely, if you get a chance to come check out G. Brian's work in the gallery, do try and do that. I don't know how long we're gonna have his work in the gallery for, but tonight is the night if you want to come check it out. Or I guess if you want to be sure to be able to check it out. We did have a little bit of a clip of his work in this live stream. So once this live stream ends, if you want to go back and check out the beginning of the clip, you should be able to see some of his work that we have in the gallery at the moment. So G. Brian is using a hot torch, which is fueled by oxygen to make that flame a lot hotter, and he's heating the end, that clear section of the vessel. What that's going to do is feed a little more heat into that part of the vessel shape so that he can shape out the bottom a little bit more. Now that's the part that the vessel is going to sit on, right? So we've got to make sure that it has a nice flat part to sit on. So G. Brian is finessing the sides up a little bit after giving it some extra heat. And then after he torches it, we're probably going to see him flatten that section so that it sits nice and flat. You guys, don't forget, if you're online and watching us on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to put your comments in the chat. If you have questions about anything we're doing tonight, feel free to pop those questions in the chat too. We're trying our best to monitor the chat and answer questions as we go. Don't forget, you can also come hang out with us in person. So if you're thinking about, if you're not doing anything tonight and you're near us, we got a couple more hours of this demonstration. We're going to be streaming until about 9 p.m. tonight. So G. Brian's going to be working in the hot shop until 9. So we can see that Heather's using a wooden paddle to shape the glass. G. Brian had his newspaper on the sides to kind of stabilize everything a little bit. Giving that vessel a nice, beautiful, crisp bottom. Ooh, it's looking good. So for those of you who haven't seen glass blowing before, you're probably wondering, how the heck does this vessel shape end up being or this bubble shape end up being a vessel? How do we make it a vase shape? We're about to watch the team transfer this piece. So we've got this big bubble, it's got a nice foot on it. The next step is going to be to actually transfer the piece. So a transfer is done by taking another solid rod of steel, what we call a punty rod, and then we put a little blob of glass on it and then stick it to the bottom of the vessel, the part that will be the bottom of the vessel. So we can see Heather standing there heating up the end of the rod. Once G. Brian has got his heat equalized a little bit with a couple of flashes, Heather's going to gather up a little bit of glass on the end of her punty rod. So you guys don't forget, if you've never been here before, come check us out. We do these demonstrations on the second Friday of every month, although we don't have a market going on the second Friday of every month. So if you're interested in coming and checking out all the cool glass we have out on our lot today, tonight is the night. We do have some glass out tomorrow as well, all day. So if you're not doing anything tomorrow, come hang out. Although we won't have G. Brian demoing with us tomorrow. So if you want to come meet G. Brian, come hang out this evening. So Heather's gathering a little bit of glass out of our furnace. You can see at this temperature the glass is super bright and yellow. And then she's shaping it on a marver. This little blob of glass is called a punty. And it's going to enable us to transfer the piece from the blowpipe to the punty rod that Heather's got in her hands at the moment. Now the transfer is important because we need access to the opening of the vase. And so the only way to switch it around and get access to the opening of the vase is to transfer it to another rod. Ashley, we love the pumpkin patch too, and we've got some really cool pumpkins this year. In fact, G. Brian brought a bunch of cool pumpkins, and so many of them have been snatched up this morning. They were some of the first ones to go. We've got a few left of his pumpkins, but they were hot. So I think because his pumpkins people hadn't seen before, and they're super unique and really beautiful, and they're priced really low for what they are. They were some of the first ones to sell. So if you guys are thinking about getting some pumpkins, oh, you did? Awesome. Yeah, they're super beautiful. Yeah, so if you were lucky enough to get one of G. Brian's pumpkins, we're hoping we can convince him to bring some more by next year, but no guarantees, you know? So if you don't get one tomorrow, you may never get one. I'm not sure. So a little clink after some water, and you can see that the piece is transferred from the blowpipe to the punty. Now, because the previous rod was a blowpipe and G. Brian was blowing into it, what we had on the other side was basically a balloon shape. And now we have access to the inside of the balloon, so we can actually shape the opening into a vessel. you can see that G. Brian is heating basically the upper part of his vessel at this point. The next steps are really to open the vessel. Now, while this piece was on the blowpipe, this section was the coolest, and so he's got to hang out here. This is one of the longer heats that a glassmaker will take. And so he's going to hang out here to get some of that heat built back in so that he can shape it up really, really well. So you'll see him go in for a quick flash. That's just to make sure the back end doesn't get too cold. And then he'll heat the top part of the vessel again. So he knows that he wants to adjust the shape of the top, which means he's got to build a lot of heat back in. Hopefully you guys can see that on camera where it's glowing super yellow. That means he's got a really, really nice heat in there. Nice enough to move like taffy again. So we're gonna do several heating moves. G. Brian's gonna flash his punty. You'll see him go all the way in to keep that backside of the vessel cool. And then he'll heat the top of the vessel so that he can continue to shape it. He makes it look really effortless, doesn't he? One of the things to keep in mind is it does take some time to get to this level of confident glassmaking, but definitely consider getting started. If this interests you at all, come and take a class. You can take a class with us if you're in our area, or go talk to your local glassmakers wherever you are and go take a class. It is a ton of fun, guaranteed. So G. Brian's doing that same process. He's heating up the entire vessel to make sure the back of the vessel gets cool, or it gets a little bit hotter, making sure it doesn't cool down too much. And then he's giving the top of the vessel a little extra heat so that he can continue to shape it. So if you've been watching for a little while, hopefully you can see how dramatically this whole piece has changed over the past hour. It's been dramatically different, right? It went from a bubble to a bubble with a big clear blob on the end for a foot. And now it's very much starting to look like a vase. I'm super excited to see what that color pattern looks like because it's so difficult to see what it looks like right now with all that heat in it. So Clifton, G. Brian realized that the tweezers had a little wax on them, or the pinchers had a little wax on them, and he is trying to clean off some of that wax so that it actually grabs the glass. G. Brian's basically using those pinchers to pull the neck out much further. If you all had caught the beginning of our live feed today, you saw that vessel in the gallery had a super long, thin neck. I don't know if he's going to be taking this vessel to that extreme, but he might. So you can see how much of the team is really assisting G. Brian. We talked a little bit about this being a team sport, and the team is rotating in and out to help him out. You can see that G. Brian has pulled what we call a little flower on the end. That's going to help him stretch out the neck of that vessel. So he has something to grab onto, kind of like a handle at this point. So with a little bit of heat, he's going to be able to stretch that a little bit further using that little flower as a handle. And then that little flower won't end up being a part of the piece. Not unless he wants it to be. But my guess is that he's going to knock that off at some point. So a little bit of further cooling with the newspaper. Cooling and shaping. And he's heating up the part that he wants to stretch. It's so very awesome to see how glass can go from just a glob of nothing, a glob of just liquid, hot, really, really hot honey to something like this with a bunch of color in it, a super amazing pattern in it, and a really nice complicated shape. So if you're watching carefully at this point, G's heat is pretty nice. You can see him slowly stretching out the neck of the vessel. He's being very patient with it. He's heating it right where he wants it to pull out. And then he's chilling out the shoulder with the newspaper to make sure it doesn't pull out where he doesn't want it to pull out. So at this point, G. Brian's been working on this piece since about 6, a little bit after 6, just about maybe an hour, 15 minutes. So consider that, and this is not the only amount of time that he's been working on it, because he put a lot of time into pulling cane before this, which was the color that went into the color pattern. So when you see a piece of glass in a gallery and you're wondering why it is so expensive, firstly consider how long it takes to get to this point. G. Brian's been blowing glass for a very, very long time. It takes a lot of skill and time to make something like this, even though it may look very simple once it's done. And there's always the possibility of the vessel not making it into the box. So there is a lot of risk involved with working with this material. So don't forget, you guys, if you're local, come hang out with us. We do these demos once a month on the second Friday of every month. But we are doing our market today. So if you've been thinking about getting a glass pumpkin, today and tomorrow are probably the best days for you to come by. You can see G. Brian pulling out that neck slowly. He's got a really great heat in there. And he's leaning out, stretching with the jacks. You can see that flower became a really, really great handle for this. And at this point, he's pulled it out pretty far. That's such a great shape. So at this point, there's a little bit of refining to do. You can see that G. Brian is kind of wrangling the glass to make sure that it stays nice and straight. I think he's trying to pull out a straight-necked vessel. And his goal is going to be to knock that flower off. So once he gets everything back into shape, nice and long neck, I believe he's planning on knocking that little flower off. So his next step is going to be to add a little bit of heat and puff up the vessel shape. That is what I heard him say. So he's going to have Heather torch the body of the vessel. And so we're adding a little bit of heat where we want the glass to inflate. So if you were paying attention, you noticed that when G. Brian took his last heat, that neck that he had pulled got really wiggly and wild on him. And so by heating with the torch, he's able to specifically control where he's heating. And so he's taking shorter flashes in the reheating chamber and then having Heather heat with the fluffy torch the section where he wants to inflate the glass a little bit. So he's being super careful. You can see that the glass is not getting too wiggly. The neck is not getting too wiggly. And he's having Heather heat just the section where he's wanting the glass to inflate. Beautiful, beautiful vessel shape. So we're gonna take a few heats like this because we're trying to build up heat in the body of the vessel and trying not to get that long, thin neck too hot. We've got to keep taking short flashes and heating up the body. And once there's enough heat built up in the body of the vessel, he's gonna be able to puff it out a little bit. So Heather is heating the top of the Sophietta, and they're going to use that to blow the vessel out a little bit. So at this point, there's a little bit of a trade-off going on. Heather's taking over the turning of the pipe, and G. Brian is going to use that tool with some air pressure to puff the vessel out a little bit. So G. Brian is checking to make sure it actually worked, but it did. It did puff out the body of the vessel a little bit. It takes a lot of skill to get that to happen without causing the causing the little neck, the thin, beautiful, slender neck to move around like crazy. And he's managed to manage that heat really, really well to avoid that from happening. So we can see him taking off that little flower at this point. And fire polishing the tip of the vessel. Beautiful shape. It's got a really, really, really gorgeous shape. So yeah, for those of you on camera now, you're probably starting to be able to see some of that pattern come out now that the glass is kind of cooling down a little bit. Those reds and oranges are starting to show a little more. It's got a super gorgeous marbled effect. At this point, G. Brian is mainly just refining the shape. They're heating and double checking to make sure everything is good. And you can see Heather walking around with her hands up. That generally is an indicator that she's looking for gloves. So the last thing before we, once we're done with the piece, is we put the piece into what we call an annealer. The annealer is basically a really hot oven that brings the glass down to room temperature slowly. So we're gonna give this a little bit more heat. We're gonna make sure we equalize the temperature. G. Brian's watching the glass, making sure that the punty doesn't get too cold, heating the side of the glass that he knows is most likely gonna be closest to the opening of the reheating chamber. So that punty is gonna be on the cooler side, so he's doing a little bit of equalizing of temperature. You guys can see that Heather's getting suited up in protective gear. She's got some Kevlar gloves on. She's got some protective gear on. And she's getting ready to catch the piece. So she's warming up her gloves on the torch. G. Brian's putting a little bit of water on that punty to make sure that it breaks clean and to give it a little bit of a shock. And then Heather is grabbing it. G is gonna heat up that punty where it broke off just to give it a little bit of a polish. And then from there it goes into our annealer, which is sitting at about 900 degrees. Beautiful. Hopefully you guys can see the pattern on there now. Excellent work, G. That was beautiful. So actually this stays in the annealer about 24 hours. So we should get it out of the annealer tomorrow evening around the same time, would be my guess. Now the thing is about that piece is it had a little bit of a thick bottom. So we may stretch that slightly just to accommodate for the difference in thickness. But hopefully about 24 hours to a little bit over that. No problem, Andy. Thanks for joining us. So we're gonna have a little bit more of a demo. Let's give G. Brian a chance to cool off a little bit. We'll give Heather a little bit of a chance to cool off, and then we should be back in about 10 minutes. So hang out with us online or come back and join us. But in the meantime, don't forget to share this live feed with your friends. G. Brian's gonna be demonstrating a couple more things this evening. You won't wanna miss it, especially after seeing that really, really cool piece we just saw. So I'll be back in about 5 to 10 minutes. Let's give G. Brian a second to cool off, and then we'll chat with you guys in a little bit here. All right, you guys. So we're back in business for the rest of this demonstration. G. Brian is getting ready and prepping the next piece. So he's picked up a little bit of color bar, and Clifton is helping him roll it up and shape it up. So color comes in a variety of different forms and shapes. What we're working with right now is color bar, which is basically a big chunk of solid colored rod. This is the way a lot of glass pieces start if they are solid in color. So it looks like G. Brian's starting with this piece. That color looks like it's got some stripes in it though, so this looks like it might be somewhat of a modified color bar. I think G. Brian may have noticed that there were some bubbles on the surface in the pot. Oh no, just kidding. They're playing around in the studio. So they're messing around with a little bit of the glass. I do think I overheard them talking about there being some bubbles on the surface of the glass, so I think part of this is G. Brian's getting some of that out of there. So Clifton has got the color prepped at this point. G. Brian is getting a pipe ready to start working with. Checking to make sure it's straight. Hopefully you guys can see that color bar that we picked up has some stripes in it. I'm not sure what colors those are, but I have a feeling we're going to see a really cool color pattern technique out of this one. So it looks like G. Brian has taken a bunch of cane and put them together. And they've gone ahead and picked that up like a color bar. Clifton's shaped it up a little bit. may have noticed there's a little bit of a bubble or something in there, so he's heating it just to get that out. G. Brian is going to gather some glass out of our furnace. So remember, as we were talking about earlier, the furnace is the heart of the studio. We keep the glass in its molten state in the furnace at about 2100 degrees, pretty much all the time. So unless we're shutting down for the summer, turning off the furnace for the summer, the glass stays at about 2100 degrees in the furnace. The nice thing about that is that it gives us access to glass whenever we need it, clear glass, so that we can add to our piece, so that we can start another piece without having to do too much work to get a glob of glass on the end of a blowpipe. Some studios will have clear glass like we do in our studio, and some studios also have an additional color pot. So in order to sometimes make things a little bit faster, certain studios will melt down color in little pots, and they will gather color right out of their little furnace. With complex color applications like what we're seeing from G. Brian tonight, we definitely need to be working with color pickup techniques. So earlier, if you were watching our feed earlier, you saw a cane roll up. That's not quite possible with a color pot, but if you're trying to get a single color on a gather, a color pot is really, really nice way to go. With this color application that he's doing right now, it looks like he has a bunch of stripes on his color, so that's something that you do need a specific color application for, and that's why we're seeing Clifton kind of help him by heating up this little color bar that has the pattern in it. And once the glass is shaped up real nice, we're gonna get a chance to drop it onto that bubble. So G. Brian's got a bubble on the end of a blowpipe, and he's let that chill out quite a bit. Clifton is dropping the color right onto the end of that blowpipe, that little bubble. And then G. Brian is using the back of the jacks to smush that color on there a little bit. We're gonna see him heat up that color once more, and then he's gonna push all that color over the bubble. Most glass artists will use the marver at this point because it allows you to get a lot more pressure on applying the color to that cooler bubble. So you can see he's heated up that glass quite nice and hot, and then he's going to squish that color over his bubble. So we have a bunch of people watching in the studio at this point. Remember that if you're local, we're going to be streaming for about 50 more minutes today. So we're live with G. Brian for about 50 more minutes this evening. So if you want to come on down, if you're nearby in the area, feel free to stop by and hang out on our bleachers. And don't forget, we also have our market going on right now. So if you want to come by, there's a bunch of glass out on our lot. And that doesn't happen all the time. So we're going to have that going for today and for tomorrow. But G. Brian is only going to be demonstrating tonight. He's come out of the glory and has gone right into the optic mold to get some cool ridges on his blowpipe. So those of you who have shown Heather and G. Brian a little bit of love on our chat today, I've passed on the good wishes from you all, and they are going to be able to read your messages too. So if you want to send them some love, go ahead and put some comments in the chat. Bill, I will certainly let him know about that. They loved reading your messages when they took a little bit of a break. So if you know them and you're friends with them or family, go ahead and put a message for them in the comments. So G. Brian is planning on gathering over this. You can see that he's chilling out the glass quite well with the air, a block. I think he's planning on gathering over this. So generally it's a waiting game, a little bit of a waiting game when we have to gather hot glass over some color. So we can see that G. Brian's waiting, kind of chilling out the glass. He's showing off the color pattern to folks in the audience. And then once the color is cool, he's going to gather over that. We got some really, really beautiful marbling happening on his glass color. So at this point the color is nice and cool. G. Brian's gathering out of our 2100 degree furnace. When he comes out, you're going to notice that the glass is bright, bright, bright yellow. At this stage, it's about 2100 degrees in temperature, so it's giving off a lot of radiant heat and light. he's going to use a wooden block to shape the glass into something like a Q-tip shape. And you can see that he's dipping the block over and over in water to chill out the wood. When the glass touches the block, it's riding on a thin layer of steam. So that water is preventing the wood from burning up too quickly. And really, it's the steam that's shaping up the glass. There's a thin layer of steam that sits in contact with the glass. So we'll notice that he switches to newspaper, and wet newspaper is such a great tool to work with. Can put your hands really, really close to the glass without getting burned. So G. Brian is shaping up the glass, and then he's heating it to equalize out the temperature. And from there he can decide whether he needs to gather more glass on top or if he is ready to blow it out into something. By the looks of it, he's attaching a blow hose to his pipe, which means he's probably getting ready to blow. Still shaping it out a little bit. Hanging it, and then starting to use the jacks to shape and put a jack line in. You can see that by hanging the glass down, he's slowly lengthening the glass as he's working. That little constriction that he put in is also going to help us when we are separating the glass from that blowpipe. Andy, the wet newspaper is awesome because the glass kind of takes the form of your hand. So whatever shape you kind of hold your hand in, the glass is going to conform to that shape. Also, it's a cheap tool, so when it burns up, you can replace it really easily. But a lot of glass makers love that this is really like the closest you can get your hands to the glass without hurting yourself. And so just like a potter throws clay on a wheel and really likes to feel the form as they're shaping the vessel or whatever they're throwing on a wheel, it's kind of the same thing for glass makers. So it works very similarly. It provides a little bit of a barrier in between the glass and your hand, and so you can shape the glass with your hands without getting burned. That's why glass makers like it so much. It is pretty cool if you guys noticed how quickly and effortlessly G. Brian pulled that shape out. So he was very, very efficient with his heat and his shaping and the blowing of the shape. So that color that he had on there looked like initially like it was very much a stripy pattern, and you can see that it's gone quite marbled. So there was a lot of something we couldn't see happening in that color. And as it blew out and thinned out, we got to see a lot more of that marbling that happened. So Heather's gathering a little bit of glass. I'm anticipating that that glass may end up going on the bottom of this vessel. And that's going to end up being the base. So the glass is going to sit on that little patty. You can see G. Brian is using a graphite paddle to shape up that little blob of glass into a nice foot. And then together, him and Heather are shaping it up. G is using the jacks to shape up the sides of that little foot, and Heather's making sure it stays nice and flat. So G. Brian's reinforcing that shape a little bit more with the paddle. It's flattening that bottom a little more. And then he's putting a little bit of an indent in the center. That's gonna help us make sure we know that that vessel is going to sit nice and flat. It's also giving him a place to spot his punty. So he's got a little indent in the very center that's going to allow him to place the punty. Now Heather, in the meantime, is getting ready for this transfer. If you've been hanging out with us on this live stream for a little while, you probably saw the last piece and how we transferred it. This is going to be very similar. So we're going to take another rod with a little glob of glass on it. We're going to shape it up, and then it's going to get stuck to the bottom where this little cookie is, this little flat disc, the foot. Once that's done, G. Brian is going to add a little water to where he put that jack line. And then they're going to transfer it to the other rod. So we can see here Heather is getting ready to gather that punty. She's been paying close attention to G. Brian's heat, so he didn't even really have to indicate that he was ready for a punty. Grabbing a little blob of glass on the end there. Decided she might need a little more. And then she's going to shape it on this marver. So we'll notice her using the marver to shape up the sides, the back, and then the tip of this punty rod. So the punty gets stuck to the bottom of the vessel. And then once G. Brian is ready, He's going to add a little bit of water to the back. The water is going to chill out the neck of the vessel. And then Heather will now have the piece. So almost every glass vessel starts as a bubble. We shape the bottom of the vessel first. So using the outside of the bubble, we shape the part that's furthest away from us into whatever we want the bottom of that vessel to look like. And then once it's transferred, we're generally shaping the top. So you'll see now that G. Brian has an opening in this vessel. And so he has access now to the interior of the bubble. So from here, we can get the bubble top to be shaped however we want. Now, we're going for a vessel shape. I'm not fully sure what shape G. Brian is going to shape his vessel into, but he's going to be heating mostly the top of the vessel to shape it. So G. Brian is at this point using the jacks to shape and open the vessel shape. We're going to see him do this in a series of flashes. So he's going to go into the reheating chamber to heat up the vessel. He's got to keep it nice and warm if he wants the glass to move. So we're going to see him do this a couple of times until he gets the right heat, enough for it to shape the glass, for him to shape the glass. So using the shears, we're going to see that he's going to go ahead and trim the lip of the vessel a little bit. And then he's going to use the jacks to continue to open. The glass at this stage is very much like taffy. So if you were to cut through taffy, that's what it would feel like. Very, very similar to that. So Seneca Studios is pretty amazing. If you've never been here before, definitely come check us out. We have tons of programming that we do. We do a bunch of outreach programming. We do community events like this. So this is brought to you free through our grant programs and through the generosity of the artists that participate with us. And so we do tons of stuff. We offer classes. We offer all sorts of things for you guys to learn about glass with us. So definitely plan and come take a class with us. Come to our open studio nights. We do this once a month on the second Friday of every month. So if it's something you enjoy, this is totally free to the public. Such a great opportunity to learn about glass. Come take a workshop with us. Come bring your kids for these events. Some of our classes start at 5 and up. If you're wanting to get your kid into glass blowing, you can come take one of our walk-up workshops. Those start at 8 and up. But it is a great opportunity to learn about glass. If you have a glass studio near you and you're not located near us, go to ask them about glass too. One of the things we really love, the whole community really loves, is telling other people about this awesome material. So if you're thinking about trying glass, go find a local studio near you, and you won't have a hard time finding people excited about this material. So we mentioned it earlier in this live broadcast, but G. Brian and Heather are coming to us from Corning, New York, and they now work at Carlin Ray Designs in Dallas. So if you want to go meet them, if you don't get a chance to tonight, go check them out in Dallas. They've got a great studio out there with Carlin Ray, and they're on her main team working in installation and design. We're so lucky to have them out here. They're such great folks. So G. Brian's going for a bowl shape. You can see that he's started opening up that vessel very, very wide. This is going to be kind of an open bowl form. Very, very different from the form we last did, which was a very narrow opening. We're going for a super wide bowl opening shape. Beautiful. You can see how much faster his hand is turning to open up that bowl, really ripping the bowl open using physics, you know, physics. Centrifugal force to swing the glass kind of open in shape. Very nice. Nice job, G. Now that marbling, there's like a lot of different colors happening in there, right? And so G. Brian has noticed that some of the colors are going to stretch more than others. You guys all probably saw that a little bit. So Heather's helping by pressing in the lip a little bit as they're turning to straighten up the lip. Some of the colors are always going to stretch further than others. So generally, some colors are stiffer than others and some are way softer. Beautiful, look at that. Ooh.
Thank you guys all again for being here. Stick around. I think we're going to do another one. We're going to do one more.
So once this piece is done, G. Brian's going to flash it a few more times. And then you can see that Heather's ready with the gloves to kind of catch it. They're going to do it similarly to last time. G. Brian's going to take a little.
Ultimately, in the end, if we just sit here on the table, it will cool off too quick and it will crack and break. So everything we make has to go into an oven to cool off very slow. So after we break it free of the punty, there's a little sharp edge. So he's going to hit that with the torch just to melt that sharp edge, and it'll be nice and fire polished, we call it, on the bottom.
To heat up and shine
Yeah, into the oven with it.
There's no sharp spots. It then goes into an annealer next to that beautiful vase shape we did earlier. And then
Yeah, it looks good. Nice moves. Excellent work.
Nice.
So the oven we put it into is the cooler, and generally speaking, it's much colder than this, but it's still hot. It's at 900 degrees. So we put it into the cooling oven at 900 degrees, and then it will cool off real slow over about 12 hours.
So
Most of the time, we put all the things in there we make, and then they'll all cool off together, and they won't come out until tomorrow afternoon, or even the next
Very
day.
much of a different process. The second
Yeah, we'll get some more color and do it again.
and a very different aesthetic. The first one had a ton of clean pattern, super controlled, beautiful, intricate form, and then the second one was a little more loose with color, all sorts of marbly, beautiful color effects in there. Much more of a quick shaping. So it looks like they're picking up pipe for another piece. I'm not quite sure what that's going to be, but I guess we'll find out.
Thing about the law is like, that's what I'm talking
That's a
about.
paddle.
No problem.
So
It-
this is what they
it's
meant by
every month.
graphite
So second Friday of every month, look out for our live
Then we
stream.
got flame work and
We
stuff like
feature a
that.
different. We try to feature a different artists.
Yeah, I almost brought you a tiny one, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna. Here's this.
I use it, I don't care. I loved it. Tape? Oh, I loved it. It was great. Oh, we got time for another one?
I don't know. It's not and the color's not that hot. I turned the box off. I should have turned it back on. My mic is on? Online? How's that possible? Oh, I shuffled.
All right, you guys. I think they're gonna be doing another piece, maybe. It looks like G. Brian has picked up another blowpipe. All right, folks. So G. Brian is gonna finish off our live stream tonight with a pumpkin. He's gonna make one with mica powder, which is basically like a glass glitter. So we're gonna put this very fine mica powder in one of the scoops. You can see Heather is placing it on. Oh, sorry, not in a scoop. On our tiny little marver over there. And mica powder, when it's applied to glass, looks shimmery, basically like glitter. It's a super fine dust. So G. Brian has started with a nice hot gather. He's going to shape that up in our block, in a wooden block. And then we're gonna see him pop a little bubble in the end. So since this is pumpkin season for us, and lots of people have glass pumpkins on their minds, especially a bunch of people came out today and bought glass pumpkins from our pumpkin patch. If you missed that opportunity, don't forget we have our glass market going on tomorrow as well. So if you want to come out and grab one of the pumpkins from this season, feel free to come out. We're going to be here tomorrow all day. And tomorrow will be the last day of our market. So tomorrow's your last opportunity to grab a cool, one of the awesome, awesome glass pumpkins that are out in our pumpkin patch. I know G. Brian brought a bunch of really, really beautiful glass pumpkins, and a lot of them sold out right when we started the market. But he may have a few more left in that pumpkin patch if you want to come grab one tomorrow. So he's blocking up that hot glass. You can see that it's super bright yellow and hot. And as he shapes it, we're going to see the color change slowly. But he's got to keep it in a nice hot temperature for him to be able to continue shaping it. For now, the mica powder, I believe, stays on the surface. And generally, it is the mica powder that, I could totally be incorrect there, but I believe he's going to place it on the surface without a clear gather on top. And the mica that is in direct contact with the glass is going to stick. Any mica that gets added additionally on top of that is not going to stick. So the goal is just to get a thin layer of mica on the surface of the glass. And to be okay with that thin layer of mica being what makes the pumpkin real beautiful. Mica doesn't stick to mica, so we're gonna get a nice thin film of mica on the outside surface of the glass. So G. Brian has gone into the optic mold and then rolled the glass into the mica powder. So the nice thing about that is what it's gonna do is it's gonna give him ridges of mica. So this pumpkin is gonna have stripes of mica powder on it. He heated it and then went in again to the mold. And from here he can take it back to the bench and blow. You can see him attaching the blow hose. He's using compressed air to inflate as he's working. So you can see that bubble blow out slowly as he's working. Then he's starting to put in a jack line. And then the paddle is going to help flatten it. Beautiful, shimmery, glittery mica pumpkin. So G. Brian's just kind of letting the glass chill out. And in the meantime, Heather's starting to gather up a little bit of glass for the stem. Oh, just kidding. They are punting this, so Heather's got a punty. G. Brian is getting ready to trade it off. And then from here, a little bit of flashing to make sure we get some heat back into that pumpkin body. Then Heather, in the meantime, has prepped up the stem. So she's giving that some heat. And then she's going to stick it in the mold. G. Brian's going to take a flash. After a quick heat, the stem is applied to the opening of the pumpkin. So cool! The pumpkin stem is wrapped around a punty just to give it a little bit of a curl, and then, as you saw, got cut away from the rod that it was brought with and then shaped so that it gets a little bit of a curl around the pumpkin. Beautifully done. And what a nice way to end our fall open studio night with G. Brian. Since it's happening during our pumpkin market and our pumpkin patch, this is a nice way to end. I hope you all got a chance to watch the other demos we did tonight. G. Brian's an amazing glassmaker, and so is Heather. If you haven't checked out the video, once we end this live stream, the video is going to be online, recorded, and you should be able to go back and take a peek at what they made earlier. So from here, you can hopefully on camera see that stem is going a little bit goldish silver in color, like it's getting a metallic finish. That is called a reduction, and that is caused by a little bit of a fluffy where there is no oxygen in the flame, or a very low amount of oxygen in the flame, causes that reduction, causes all the metal to come to the surface of the glass. And that gives it a really beautiful shiny finish. So if you haven't picked up your pumpkin for the year yet, don't forget that we have our market going on tomorrow too. Just want to take a moment to thank Heather and G. Brian for coming out to our open studio night this evening. It's been so nice to have you both here, and always a pleasure to hang out with both of you. Don't forget, you guys, we have some of G. Brian's work in the gallery, and we have tons of his pumpkins outside. So if you are thinking you might want a vessel like the one you saw made tonight, we've got a vessel in the gallery that is priced exceptionally well. So if you're thinking, I really like that vessel shape, we're gonna have that in the gallery. The one he's made prior in the gallery for you to check out. So come by, check it out. And if you like it, take it home with you. From here, the pumpkin's gonna go into the annealer. Where it'll sit at 900 degrees overnight for about 24 hours, maybe a little longer than that. And so once it comes down to room temperature, we should be able to get it out of there and take a peek at it in person at room temperature. So don't forget, you guys, come join us. We got a little bit of time tomorrow. The whole day is gonna be filled with the market if you wanna come hang out. Don't forget, we do tons of classes. I'm gonna give the mic over to Clifton to end our broadcast tonight.
All right, thanks so much for coming out, everybody. We really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. A big shout out to everybody here at Seneca. Thanks so much. Make sure you stop by, take a class. Don't forget about the pumpkin patch. Make a donation. Anything that you do is much appreciated and helpful to bring out other visiting artists, not just myself, but everybody in the future too. So again, thanks so much for tuning in. Hope everybody has a great evening. Check out our website. Check out our YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe. We really do appreciate all the likes. You guys have a great day. Thanks so much. Good night.
Thanks so much, G, for being here. We really appreciate you. I want to represent the team. Gene behind the scenes making it happen. Kevin on the assist. Lucas here photographing and documenting everything. I want to thank the team out there that's managing the market and the pumpkin patch, Heidi, and all of the volunteers who've been here today. We wouldn't be able to do this without an awesome community of people who come together to make it happen. So we're really grateful for the City of Fort Worth, Arts Fort Worth, the Texas Commission on the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Annealer and Carol Green Rhodes Charitable Trust, the J.E.S. Edwards Family Foundation, the R4 Foundation. There's so many great people who have been a part of helping us to grow, and we're super grateful for their support. If you want to help out, you know, a couple bucks goes a long way. It adds up. You know, go online, check out our website. You can make donation. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank G. Brian for being our featured artist tonight. Really appreciate you being here, sir. And come back, right? We're going to do this the second Friday of every month. We got all kinds of workshops and classes. You can come participate in that way. You can buy some great things in the gallery. If you're lucky and you get here in the next couple of days, G. Brian's got some great pieces in there, and they're priced to sell. So there's some really great things there that if you want to come by and pick up, they'll be here for you. So thanks so much for tonight. We're going to sign off. We'll see you guys at the next installment of Seneca Studios Open Studios Night 2022. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful evening.